This is an application for a land use bylaw map amendment to rezone a property located on Prospect Road, New Minas. My name is Alice Jacob and I'm a planner with the municipality of County of Kings. The purpose of this presentation is to inform the public about this application and to explain the planning policies that enable this application to occur, as well as to receive preliminary feedback from the public. No opinions have been formed on this application at this point. This is the very beginning of the process. I will explain the entire process towards the end of this presentation. The red circle on the map is the approximate location of the property within the growth center of New Minas, and the PID is 55199-145. This is an aerial view of the subject property. So the subject property is approximately 5.59 acres in area. The access to the property is from Prospect Road. There are no existing structures or buildings on the subject property. There is vegetation covering majority of the property, as you can see. To the south of the property, there is Highway 101, and the neighboring properties to the east and to the west are developed with residential uses. To the north and the northeast, there are a few commercial uses. The applicant purchased the property in 2024. The proposal is to build multi-unit dwellings, which will be developed in phases. A total of 121 units are being proposed currently. The subject property is located within a zone called the Highway Commercial C5 zone, and residential uses are not permitted within the C5 zone. So the property will have to be rezoned to the mixed commercial residential C3 zone in order to enable the proposed development. This map shows the zoning of the area. So as we can see here, the subject property is located within a zone called the C5 zone, which is the highway commercial zone. The C5 zone permits a variety of commercial uses like retail stores, restaurants, arts and cultural centers, bus and taxi stations, and a few other commercial uses. No residential uses are permitted within the C5 zone. So if the zone change gets approved, the property would be subject to the requirements of the new zone, which is the mixed commercial residential C3 zone. The C3 zone permits both residential and lower impact commercial uses. And as we can see here, there are a few other zones within the area. So there is the P1 zone here, which is the commercial recreation zone that enables recreational uses like campgrounds, golf courses, drive-in theaters, gun ranges, and a few other uses. And there is the O1 zone here, which is the environmental constraint zone, which restricts development because it is an area that has an increased risk of flooding, erosion, or slope failure. And then there is the C6 zone right next to it, which enables the development of large-scale business areas. And there is also the country residential A4 zone, which is for low-density neighborhoods in predominantly agricultural areas. For rezoning applications, we usually do not require a site plan or building plans because at the rezoning stage, we do not evaluate a particular development proposal. But if the rezoning gets approved, the applicant will have to apply for the necessary development and building permits. And it is at that stage that the site plans and building plans will be reviewed. This is just a rough sketch of the site plan that the applicant submitted along with the package. As I mentioned previously, the proposal here is for 121 units. On the site plan, this here is Prospect Road. The buildings are shown in orange and the gray lines indicate the driveway, along with parking shown on the side of the driveway. The buildings will be developed in phases. So phase one will include the development of the rear portion of the subject property, and phase two, the applicant intends to develop this front portion of the property towards Prospect Road. So moving on to some of the photographs of the subject property and the adjacent areas. So on the top right, there is a key map for reference. This image shows the access to the property from Prospect Road, which is marked on the map in red. And this is a view from the axis of the subject property looking north. As you can see here, there is Prospect Road, and this would be the area within the environmental constraint O1 zone. Again, there is a key map in the center for reference. So the image to the left is the view from the axis of the subject property looking west, and the image to the right is a view from the axis looking east. And these are images of this area marked in red on the map, on the key map. So as we can see here, the property is covered in vegetation for the most part. And this image is of the rear portion of the property. So there is Highway 101 behind this existing vegetation. And this is a policy from our municipal planning strategy that enables this rezoning. So the policy states, consider amendments to any one of the zoning maps of the land use bylaw, provided the application is for a specific development and is to rezone land to another zone enabled within the same designation, unless the zone change is specifically prohibited within the strategy. So this policy directs us to policy 3.2.3, which lists all zones enabled within the commercial designation. And criteria A of this policy states all zones in policy 3.2.2 above. And this is policy 3.2.2. So as we can see here, both the mixed commercial residential C3 zone and the highway commercial C5 zone are listed within this policy. As a result, council is able to consider this rezoning. And this is an additional policy that applies to all rezoning applications. So in order for staff to form a recommendation, we would need to check if the proposal meets the intent of this policy. So with regards to criteria A, we would check if it would be appropriate to place the proposed C3 zone on the subject property, and if the intent of the C3 zone is being met through this rezoning. And B, we would compare the uses permitted within the current zone, which is C5 zone, and the proposed C3 zone to check if the impacts of the proposed development and other permitted uses within the new zone are acceptable. And C, we would assess if the proposal meets the other criteria listed within our general policy. And this here is a general policy. So most of the points listed within this policy will be assessed by us, the municipality, but there are few aspects here that are not within our jurisdiction, and we will have to contact the relevant department for their input. So the policy, we would assess the proposal to check if the proposal is consistent with the intent of the municipal planning strategy. We would also check if the proposal is in conflict with any municipal or provincial programs, bylaws, or regulations, whether there would be any financial impact on the municipality because of the proposed development. We would also need to see if the proposal is appropriate in terms of land use compatibility. And we would need to also confirm that there are adequate schools, recreation, and community facilities to support the proposed development. We will be contacting the Department of Public Works for their input on the adequacy of road networks and to check if they anticipate any issues with traffic hazards or congestion. And we will be contacting the new Minas fire chief to confirm the adequacy of fire protection services for the proposed development. And we will also get in touch with the village of New Minas to confirm the adequacy of sewer and water services for the proposed development. And finally, we will also need to look at the potential for flooding or drainage issues and also the site suitability. And finally, our process. The first step is to receive a complete application, which we have received. The second step is a public information meeting. The public information meeting for this application was held on July 31st, 2024 at the New Minas Fire Hall. And the third step is a staff review. So staff will be reviewing this application and preparing a report. The staff report will then be presented to the Planning Advisory Committee for a recommendation. If the Planning Advisory Committee forwards a positive recommendation to the Council, then Council will give a first reading to the application. The Council will also decide whether to forward this application to a public hearing. If it is forwarded to a public hearing, then properties within 500 feet will be notified about the public hearing, and it will also be advertised in the local newspaper. The public hearing is an opportunity for the public to come in and share their concerns or feedback or opinions with the council. Soon after the public hearing, the application will go for a second reading with the council. It is at this stage that council will take a decision, and this decision will then be advertised in the local newspaper. The day it is advertised, a 14-day appeal period will begin, at which point anyone affected by the council's decision can appeal. So that concludes my presentation. Again, my name is Alice. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. My number is 902-690-6276, or you can email me at ajacob@countyofkings.ca.